Motorcycle dealerships in 2025 are turning into graveyards for unsold bikes. Rows of brand new Harleys, Hondas, and BMWs sit untouched, collecting dust, while desperate dealers slash prices and offer record-breaking discounts, but no one's buying them. Manufacturers are cutting production, laying off workers, and struggling to survive. Repossessions are skyrocketing, flooding the used market and crushing resale values. Just a year ago, the industry was booming. So what's the shocking truth behind how all of this has happened? Have you walked into a motorcycle dealership recently? If you have, you've probably noticed something strange. The buzz is gone. No excited buyers, no salespeople working the floor, no energy in the showroom. Instead, you'll find row after row of brand new motorcycles just sitting there, untouched. Some have been parked in the same spot for months, collecting dust and losing value by the day. It wasn't long ago that dealerships couldn't keep bikes in stock. In 2024, some models had waiting lists, and buyers were placing orders months in advance, hoping their bikes would arrive before the riding season was over. Demand was so strong that dealerships were charging over MSRP, and buyers were willing to pay just to secure their dream ride. But in 2025, the script is completely flipped. Motorcycle sales have collapsed, and dealerships are drowning in unsold inventory. This isn't just a problem with one or two brands. The entire industry is in trouble. Harley-Davidson, Indian, Honda, Yamaha, Ducati, BMW, every major manufacturer is struggling. Even premium brands that once sold out within weeks are now offering steep discounts just to move a few units. Some dealerships are knocking thousands off MSRP, throwing in free accessories, extended warranties, and zero-interest financing deals. But even with these incentives, buyers just aren't showing up. How bad is it? Across the United States, there are more than 45,000 brand new motorcycles sitting unsold in dealerships. Some have been there for over 200 days. An unthinkable scenario just a year ago. In the past, dealers cycled through stock quickly, constantly bringing in new shipments from manufacturers. And now they can't even afford to take in new inventory because their showrooms are already overflowing. The situation is even worse for smaller brands. Zero Motorcycles and Royal Enfield, companies that had been gaining traction just a couple of years ago, are shutting down dealerships across the country because they can't sustain the financial losses. These brands have been working hard to expand, building a dedicated customer base, but with sales falling off a steep cliff, they've had no choice but to scale back operations or shut down completely. Even the biggest names in the business aren't immune to this crisis. Major manufacturers are feeling the financial strain. They're making drastic cuts to survive. Harley-Davidson and Indian have both slashed production, knowing that dealerships can't move the inventory they already have. The problem extends beyond dealership. Factories are slowing down, workers are being laid off, and suppliers are struggling to stay afloat. This isn't just a slow season or a temporary dip in demand. It's a full-blown industry crisis. Motorcycle sales haven't just declined, they've collapsed, leaving dealers and manufacturers scrambling to stay in business. Even with historically high discounts, dealerships are still finding it nearly impossible to sell bikes. Why? Because buyers know the market is crashing. Riders who were considering a new motorcycle in 2025 are waiting for even bigger price drops before pulling the trigger. They've seen used motorcycle prices tanking due to skyrocketing repossessions, and they know dealerships will have no choice but to slash prices further as unsold bikes continue to pile up. The financial strain on dealerships is becoming unbearable. Many dealers borrow money to finance their inventory, expecting to sell bikes quickly and pay off their loans. But with motorcycles sitting unsold for months, they've been paying interest on bikes they can't move. Some smaller dealerships won't survive this collapse, and the ones who do may never recover from the financial losses. If manufacturers can't turn this around soon, the entire industry could shrink permanently. Brands that once thrived on strong sales and customer loyalty are now facing an uncertain future. The motorcycle market is undergoing a seismic shift, and the days of easy sales, high demand, and rising prices are over. So what happens next? Do manufacturers slash prices even further just to clear out inventory? Do dealerships close their doors for good? Or do riders eventually come back to the market once prices hit rock bottom? One thing is clear, the motorcycle industry isn't bouncing back anytime soon. What was once a booming market is now on the brink of collapse, and the worst may still be ahead. If you want to understand just how bad things are, all you have to do is look at the numbers. For years, manufacturers were racing to meet demand. Dealerships were selling bikes as fast as they could stock them, and production lines were running at full speed, but not anymore. Harley-Davidson has slashed production by 25%, and Indian Motorcycles is making similar cuts. Even smaller manufacturers are struggling to keep their doors open. Think about what that means. A company like Harley-Davidson, a brand that has survived wars, recessions, and economic crashes, is slashing production because the market is that bad. That's not just a minor dip in sales, that's a major warning sign. When production slows down, it sets off a domino effect that impacts every corner of the motorcycle industry. It starts at the factories, where skilled workers who have spent years, sometimes decades, perfecting their craft are suddenly being laid off. These are people who dedicated their careers to building motorcycles, ensuring that every bolt, every engine, and every detail met the highest standards. Now with production slowing, they're facing unemployment, uncertain about what the future holds. But it doesn't stop there. The ripple effect moves down the line to dealership sales teams, the ones who work tirelessly to help customers find their dream bikes and make those big purchases happen. These salespeople who were once busy putting motorcycles in people's garages and creating loyal customer relationships are also being let go. It's a harsh chain of reaction, and it's hitting every level of the industry, from the assembly lines to the showroom floors. But perhaps the most alarming sign of trouble, the skyrocketing rate of repossessions. Motorcycles purchased in 2023 and 2024 are now being repossessed at record rates as owners struggle to keep up with payments. For many, the rising interest rates have pushed monthly payments to unaffordable levels. What once seemed like a manageable investment has now become an overwhelming financial burden. Riders who once took pride in their bikes are being forced to make tough choices, many of them simply walking away, giving up their motorcycles just because they can't afford them anymore. It's not just about losing a mode of transportation, it's about losing a passion, a lifestyle, and a piece of freedom that motorcycles often represent. But the problem doesn't end there. Once lenders repossess these bikes, they're eager to offload them as quickly as possible to recoup their losses. They flood the markets with used motorcycles, often at dirt cheap prices. Bikes that were once worth thousands of dollars just a few months ago are now being sold for a fraction of their original price. The resale market is taking a massive hit, and it's creating a tough dilemma for buyers and sellers. Why would anyone pay full price for a brand new motorcycle when they can buy a nearly new one for significantly lower? It's a buyer's market for used bikes, but a nightmare for anyone trying to sell their motorcycle or trade it in. This glut of repossessed bikes is crushing resale values and making it harder for dealerships to move new inventory. The situation isn't just affecting individual buyers or sellers, it's shaking the entire industry. Those selling custom parts, gears, and accessories are seeing fewer customers as motorcycle enthusiasts tighten their budgets. What started as a slowdown in production has snowballed into a full-blown crisis that's reshaping the landscape of motorcycle sales. The question now is, how long will this last? And can the industry recover from the damage it's already done? The answers aren't clear. But one thing's for sure, the motorcycle world is facing one of its toughest roads yet, and everyone involved is feeling the impact. This is why dealerships are drowning in unsold inventory. It's a vicious cycle. High prices pushed buyers away. High interest rates make financing impossible, and now repossessions are flooding the used market, making new bikes even harder to sell. Some dealerships are panicking. They're offering massive discounts, slashing prices by thousands of dollars just to get bikes off the floor. But it's not working. Buyers know the market is crashing, and they're waiting for prices to drop even further. The longer they wait, the cheaper bikes will get, and dealerships are running out of options. How did we get here? Just a year ago, in 2024, the motorcycle market was thriving. Dealerships were selling bikes as fast as they could stock them. Manufacturers were ramping up production, and prices, while high, weren't stopping people from buying. But in 2025, everything has come to a screeching halt. Sales have plummeted, dealerships are sitting on mountains of unsold inventory, and manufacturers are cutting production because demand has all but disappeared. This wasn't an overnight crash. It was a slow-motion disaster years in the making. Rising costs, reckless price hikes, and economic instability all played a role in what would become the worst motorcycle market crash in decades. For decades, motorcycles were the everyman's ride, an affordable alternative to cars. Whether you wanted a cruiser, a sports bike, or an adventure machine, there was something for everyone. Entry-level bikes gave new riders an easy way into the world of motorcycles, while bigger, more expensive models still felt within reach for those willing to save up or finance their purchase. But then manufacturers got greedy. Every year they pushed prices higher and higher, turning motorcycles into luxury items rather than practical modes of transportation. A bike that cost $12,000 in 2020 is now well over $15,000. Some models have seen price hikes of 40% or more in just a few years. Even beginner bikes, the ones meant to attract new riders, have become so expensive that many people simply can't afford them. This wasn't sustainable, but for a while people kept paying the higher prices. Riders who loved motorcycles stretched their budgets to afford newer models. Dealerships pushed financing harder, and manufacturers kept raising MSRPs because they believed buyers would always find a way to make the payments work. Just as motorcycles are getting more expensive, the cost of manufacturing shot through the roof. Tariffs, trade wars, and inflation made raw materials more expensive, which drove up production costs. The supply chain disruptions that started in 2020 never fully recovered, and by 2025, the cost of everything from steel to electronics to shipping had reached record highs. Manufacturers, instead of absorbing some of those costs, passed them directly onto consumers. Prices soared. Potential buyers started backing off. At the same time, inflation was shrinking the average person's spending power. People were paying more for groceries, gas, rent, and everyday necessities, leaving them with less disposable income. A motorcycle, especially a brand new one with a sky-high price tag, became something many people could no longer justify. Even if someone wanted to buy a motorcycle in 2025, financing has become a nightmare. Just a few years ago, motorcycle loans had low, manageable interest rates, making it easy for people to afford monthly payments. But that changed quickly. Interest rates tripled as the Federal Reserve raised borrowing costs to fight inflation. In 2019, a new motorcycle loan came with a 3 to 4% interest rate. In 2025, that number has soared to 9.5% or higher for new bikes. Buying a used motorcycle isn't any better with rates hitting 11 to 15%. And if your credit isn't perfect, some lenders are charging up to 18%, making it nearly impossible for many riders to afford financing. Here's what that looks like. If you finance a $30,000 Harley-Davidson, you could end up paying close to $40,000 by the time the loan is paid off. That's an extra $10,000 in interest alone. Buyers are taking one look at those numbers and walking away. Lenders have also tightened their requirements, rejecting more loan applications than ever before. Even if someone wants to buy a bike, there's no guarantee they'll get approved. The few that do often realize that the monthly payments are way too high to be practical. This is a big reason why sales have collapsed. Buyers aren't just deciding not to buy. Many can't buy, even if they want to. On top of all this, there's another huge problem. Repossessions have skyrocketed. Many riders who financed motorcycles in 2023 and 2024 are struggling to keep up with their payments, especially with rising interest rates and higher living costs. Thousands have been forced to default on their loans, leading to a wave of repossessions. And when lenders repossess motorcycles, they sell them off quickly, often for far below market value. That has flooded the used bike market with inventory, driving resale prices into the ground. Suddenly, used motorcycles are significantly cheaper than newer ones, and anyone considering a brand new bike is waiting for prices to drop further. This perfect storm of high prices, unaffordable financing, and a flooded used market has left manufacturers and dealerships struggling to survive. Manufacturers like Harley-Davidson and Indian have been forced to cut production because dealers can't move the bikes they already have. Some dealers like Zero Motorcycles and Royal Enfield have had to shut down dealerships because sales are so bad. Dealerships, once thriving businesses, are now desperate to sell inventory. Many have slashed thousands of dollars off MSRPs, offering record-breaking incentives just to get people in the door. Some are even offering 0% financing for the first year or throwing in free accessories. But it's not working. Buyers are holding off, knowing prices will drop even more if they wait. The motorcycle industry is in uncharted territory. Prices are collapsing, manufacturers are cutting back, and dealerships are sitting on record levels of unsold inventory. The industry's overconfidence in rising prices and endless demand has finally caught up with them, and they're paying the price. For buyers, the best strategy is to wait. Prices will likely fall even further, and dealerships will become even more desperate to move inventory. For those thinking about selling their bike, the window is closing fast as more bikes hit the used market, and resale values will plummet even further. This isn't just a market correction. It's the biggest motorcycle industry crash in decades, and the road to recovery is going to be long and painful. Will manufacturers finally learn from their mistakes, or is the industry headed for an even bigger collapse? Even if you really wanted to buy a motorcycle in 2025, would you be able to afford it? The answer for most people is no, not because they don't want a bike, but because financing has become impossible. Think about what that does to monthly payments. If someone finances a $30,000 Harley-Davidson, they could end up paying nearly $40,000 by the time the loan is paid off. It's an extra $10,000 just in interest. And that's before insurance, maintenance, and registration fees. Even people with good credit are struggling to get approved. Lenders know that people are financially stretched thin, so they're tightening approval standards. More people are getting rejected for loans, and even if they do get approved, the monthly payments are crushing their budgets. So what's happening? People are walking away. Instead of buying a new bike, they're holding on to their old ones longer. They're buying used motorcycles instead, or worse, they're giving up on riding altogether, because it's just too expensive. And this is exactly why the motorcycle market is collapsing. Manufacturers raised prices too high, the economy made everything worse, and financing became a financial trap. And so here we are, dealerships full of unsold bikes, factories cutting production, repossessions hitting record highs, and an entire industry on the verge of collapse. So what do you think? Will motorcycle manufacturers fix their mistakes and bring prices back down? Or is the industry in for an even bigger crash? Let us know in the comments section down below.